Hey folks, how's everyone doing?
Doing good. What about you, Benji?
Yeah, not too bad. Coming up on 14 hours a week today. Yeah, woke up bizarrely early, don't know why. Looks like we're waiting for Kuwait and possibly Lee.
Always going to be 15 minutes or so late.
Okay, and Lee's just turned up, as has Jeff.
Hello.
Jeff, I don't think you're in the agenda yet. Did you raise a pull request?
I believe I have a pull request. I'm running on little
Bathroom.
sleep still.
Yeah, you and me both.
How you doing, Jeff?
Pardon?
I said, how you doing?
Oh, I'm all right. Yeah, we're good.
Like,
The family is healed. We're
oh,
we're
good,
healed
good,
up.
good. You got quite an agenda today. I'm excited. Um, okay, I'm keeping an eye on pull requests. I don't see any outstanding ones at the moment. Pulling up our agenda file. Oh, I need to generate some new ones. We're getting to the end of our generated docs here. How's everybody doing? June, hopefully it's starting to get warm everywhere. Not too warm. All right, folks, we'll kick us off. Welcome to June's edition of the GraphQL Working Group. Of course, by everybody being here, we agree to the spec membership agreement, participation guidelines, contribution guide, and code of conduct. There's always links in the agenda files if anyone ever wants a refresher. Let's go around and do super quick intros for the sake of the recording and to make sure that everyone's microphones work correctly. And then we'll dig into the agenda. We'll go down the list as it is written in the agenda file, just so folks know where they come. And then if anyone's not in the agenda file yet, you can pick up your name last. My name's there at the top. So hello, everybody. My name is Lee.
Hey, I'm Yovi.
Kuwait going to be a few minutes late. Hello, everyone. I'm Benji.
I don't think we have Michael on the call yet either.
All right. I'm Matt.
Hey everyone, Rob.
I'm Steven.
And I'm Jeff.
Thank you all, friends. Stephen and Jeff, if you don't mind popping a pull request over to add your names to the agenda. Oh, Jeff, I see yours. I will merge it. And then that way we've got a great record of everyone who is here. All right. I don't believe we had, or let's do a quick review of our agenda. So we have a decent number of stuff to talk through here. Editorial changes to composite terms from Jovi. An editorial change to show how parts of the request are passed to execute request from Benji. Discussion on moving fragment arguments forward in the RFC process, which is very exciting, and defining data collections used in the spec for Benji, and then fixing a reference mistake in subscription execution. Is there anything that we want to talk about that's not on this list? Otherwise, we'll take silence as we've got a solid agenda. I'll stick one just while I'm on my diatribe here at the top. One thing that's not on our agenda for TSC folks on the call is that please take a look out for Benji sent out a message to review our talk submissions for GraphQL Conf that's coming up. We got a huge number of talk submissions, which is awesome. We also have I understand a bunch of early bird registrants as well, which is very promising because usually the registrations don't come in until people have been able to see the schedule, and the schedule is dependent on us approving some of these talks. So we're off to a good showing for the beginning of that. Yeah, go ahead, Benji.
Where's the unmute button? I found it. Yes, there was one thing I wanted to ask, which is I've just created the agendas for July and August. But September, I hear we've got some kind of event coming up in September. What's that going to mean for the working groups?
That is a good question. So my sense is that it's kind of hard to like sit down and do full work at the conference. But we should 100% do some social fun things. We should absolutely meet up as a group and do something excellent for everybody who's going to be in town. But what do folks think? I think the way it lines up also is that our usual date slot for this meeting would be the week before the conference. Is that right?
Yeah, that's accurate. It should normally be on the 5th of September, and then the conference is the week after. It would be nice to do a meeting during the conference just for fun. But yeah, I'm not sure that we'll necessarily have much to discuss because we'll be discussing everything at the conference anyway.
Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was going to say, if we wanted to do something, it might be like one of our secondary meetings. If we moved one of those to be like the day before, the day after, depending on when people can come in, that might be nice, useful. So either morning after or evening before.
Great. Well, for the sake of generating our agendas, let's assume that we'll hold our standard working group meeting in that prior week. And if we change our minds and we want to do like full business the week of the conference, we can do that. I also suspect there's going to be some handful of folks who aren't able to travel, and we'll still want to be able to make sure we're making progress on all the things we're working on. We should
Real quick,
100%
one
be-
opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, apologies. Yeah, like one opportunity that we could have at GraphQL Conference to solicit feedback on RFCs that might not otherwise be looked at. Like if we can have we're gonna get foot traffic, right? Like, is there a special booth we can have, like, or something like that? Some sort of getting feedback is hard, but when it's right there in front of you, it's a lot easier to take a look and to weigh in on something. So I wonder if there's some sort of form factor, or if this has been done before in other conferences that include like sort of a spec element where folks can come in, take a look, and like, you know, kind of have that a natural, I don't want to say social pressure, but like that idea of like, hey, this is convenient for me. I can take a look at some RFCs, give some feedback, maybe in the form of even like an emoji or an upvote or like a comment section, something like that. Maybe something that's lighter weight than having them authenticate in GitHub in front of you and post a thought out comment, but some sort of informal feedback loop that we could then digest in the next month's primary working group or something like that, just to synthesize all the feedback and maybe collate it into something. Just possible opportunity for kind of crowdsourcing a greater volume of ideas.
This is a really cool idea. It's getting my juices flowing. Maybe we want to have like a TSC or a working group booth that's like amongst the other booths so that folks can come up and chat with TSC members, and that would also be an interesting place to have, you know, the way to collect feedback or a thing to interact with. Yeah, not only should we be getting feedback, 100% agree, but also folks who want to see the technology move forward and want to find a way to contribute. Like, it's not always easy or obvious to figure out your way in. And if folks who join the conference decide that's something that they would love to participate in, that'll also be really cool.
I was just thinking, like when you go to a zoo or something, they often have like, oh, we're going to be feeding the birds at 3 p.m. or whatever on a big board. We can have one of those big boards, like next TSC meetings, 3 p.m. There's going to be someone at the booth at 3. Come back then, sort of thing. Yeah, I like it.
That's a cool idea. Okay. Clearly, we need to be doing a little bit more brainstorming on this one. I think we should open the discussion or an issue or a thread there. That way we can keep spooling these ideas out. But 100% yes, we're doing something fun socially during the event. We will definitely meet up. And then also, I love this idea of there's like one or many things that we could do to further include the rest of the conference goers to kind of fold them into the sausage making process of the GraphQL working group, and hopefully get their feedback and ideally also get some new participants as well. That would be really awesome. Okay, let's jump straight into the agenda. I'm going to skip over action items and previous meeting roundup because I already previewed it and there's nothing of interest in there. And so, Jovi, I will hand the floor to you to talk about composite terms.
All right. This is about, I'll link the PR in the notes, a small editorial change where we add a clarifying note for composite and in the title expand it to object interface and so on. This already got 2 TSC approvals. So is it good to merge? Do we want to look at it again?
Let's take a quick look live.
I'm pretty sure I approved it before this meeting, so it should be a 3rd TSC approval.
Cool. I'm going to trust that you like combed through all of the files in the spec. Jovi, do we use the term composite anywhere other than this note that you've added after your change?
I'll check again. I didn't think so. It's been a while. Okay. So we have it in introspection and in validation. And in validation, we've expanded the title and added the notes.
Yovi actually did change it in introspection, and I suggested changing it back. In introspection, we say input objects are composite types defined as blah, 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 blah. And that is true. They are composite types. And I think that's useful. Whereas in the rest of the spec, where we are actually using composite to reference object, union, and interface types, I think it's better to be more explicit that those are the specific types that we're talking about, rather than there we've been using it as an umbrella term, whereas in section 4 we're just using it as a describing term. So they're 2 different use cases.
I see. Okay, I think this is a great change. Let's make it happen. I'm gonna merge it right now.
Awesome, thank you.
I agree with the general arc of the discussion that having like clarifying terms, like if there's a term that's used very rarely or very confusingly, we should just remove it. And then otherwise, when we have terms that are quite useful, we should define them with accuracy. And this does the first one of those 2 things well, which is take a confusing, rarely used version of the term and gets rid of it. Right.
Yeah, it's also much more helpful if you're searching through for where the word interface is mentioned, because now it doesn't hide it behind the word composite.
Yeah. One fewer layer of indirection.
Do you think it's necessary to have the note that the term composite used to be in the spec? I mean, since there's like previous versions of the spec are available online, if there's any confusion about that.
The reason that we added that was because we use the word composite quite a lot in the implementations.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you're looking through that, it kind of ties them together a little.
Okay.
I have a hunch that we might not be done here in this particular area of our definitions, because it is a useful term in implementations, but that's definitely a positive change. I think it probably requires a little bit more holistic thought on how we want to talk about groupings of types in the type system. But thank you, Jovi. Let's move on to the next piece, Benji, to talk about parts of the request passed to execute request.
Right, yes. So this we discussed previously, April working group, and essentially this was part of a bigger piece of work where I wanted to define extensions. Nonetheless, we decided to extract this out. And what we're essentially doing here is previously we talked about calling execute request, and execute request accepts a whole bunch of like named parameters, but we only said you call it with open close parenthesis. So this explicitly now calls it with all the named parameters, and it gives you those named parameters. So it's just a little bit of reformatting, but I think it helps with clarity, and it will make that future change much smaller as well.
I do remember that. So thank you for breaking the big change up into atomic small changes. I kind of agree with Matt. This is just kind of pure win because it was quite confusing that we had a algorithm in the spec called execute request with arguments, and then it was referenced without any arguments. And so this seems very clarifying. I'm going to give a moment for other folks to pop open the link and scan through in case there's any other feedback or questions. Benji, would you like me to merge this as is, or do you want an opportunity to scan through for nits before and let you merge it?
I think it's good to go. I haven't really changed the wording that was already there. So like Matt says, any of the nits are really just things that already existed, but should probably be addressed at some point.
Yeah.
Cool. Why is my squash and merge? My squash and merge button is red, so I'll come back to that in a few minutes, but I will intend to merge this one.
I think maybe there's an issue with Netlify. It looks like that's hanging. Given that the last push to this was ages ago, I don't think that's going to resolve itself. Maybe we'll close and reopen the pull request.
I opened up the build and it did successfully complete. So I think you're right that it's just like failed to report back to GitHub. Okay, I will slightly unsafely merge this on. It's fine, it's merged. Woohoo. All right, next up, fragment arguments. Joby, back to you.
Yeah. So for historical context, I kind of took over the PR that Matt had, and tried to apply as much of the feedback as I could and changed a few things along the way. I've been given a lot of feedback from Benji and been able to change a lot of things. There are still two open points now on validation, which I'll address in the near future. But it's basically like, is this sound enough to advance us to RFC 2?
Well, while we talk about that, I'm going to do the thing that Benji mentioned in the thread, which is copy over the RFC1 label from the previous PR. And do we want to officially call this the spiritual replacement? Matt, do you want to
Yeah, I
close
can
out the previous
I
one?
can close the other one. Yeah.
All right, cool. I'll help us dedupe. Okay, well, let's talk about stage 2 criteria, just to guide our conversation on stage 1 to stage 2. So in stage 1, as a reminder, we know we have a champion, we know we have a clear explanation of the problem space and the proposed solution. This group of folks believes that it's a problem we're solving and we're going after it, and there's some draft work happening. Stage 2 means that we have a fully formed solution that's precisely described with spec edits, as well as a compliant implementation as a pull request, at least, if not merged, in GraphQL.js. So Yobi, catch us up, like where are we with the spec edit quality and the reference implementation?
Yeah, so as far as I know, Benji reviewed up until execution and has left a lot of feedback. I think the last few open points are details. It's basically if a variable is passed, like how do we dedupe it in potentially conflicting fields. In GraphQL.js, there's open pull requests for everything but that rule. So like the parser, execution, type, it's all handled, Lexer, so on. And yeah, do we want to go into the solution itself, or?
So I'll just put out my opinion, which is basically the moment we have the validation is the hard thing. The validation is the thing that I like basically was like, I'm putting this in a box and leaving it for later, which I'm very happy picked up. But in basically RFC2, somebody should be able with work to actually use this in their implementation. And right, it might take work. It might take like, oh, I have to, patch this onto my version of GraphQL.js and like get it all tied up. But there should at least be examples and tests that could verify that they're doing the right thing. And I think with validation, without at the very least an iteration of validation, it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to necessarily like, maybe we find out that there are some test cases that we didn't think about there, and that's fine. But I wouldn't feel comfortable moving to 2 without the fully formed hard bit, like proven.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's the right read. At the end of the day, these stages don't really unlock anything other than them being like a bit of a social contract as to like what you can expect. If you go like interact with, like if you go read the pull requests, like how should you be reading this? Is it done or is it not? And I think Matt's description is right. It's like there are no major like there are no remaining major pieces that are left unbuilt in both reference and the spec change. There may be bugs or problems or like minor issues that are still being worked on to resolve before it's deemed accepted. But all the like major building blocks are in fact there. So I think that means that we're really freaking close, and it's just a matter of getting that first what seems to be totally working version of the validator for this. And I imagine that over the course of writing the test suite and stuff, you'll find corner cases that you'll want to keep working on before we get to stage 3.
Yeah, but on a personal level, I'm very ready to push this to 2, like the moment there is that.
On
Just
that
a question,
topic, oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I think I remember like last time we were talking about it, there was in the implementation in GraphQL.js, there's when you are executing and you come across a visited fragment, how do you handle that to make sure that you don't recurse into the same fragment again? I think maybe we were like serializing the variable values, but that could be, I guess that could be large. You could pass like a giant image or something to a variable. Is that still a question? Open question?
We have stopped serializing the arguments, and I think it was least common back then. We just use the name now. I would have to double check.
Use the name of the variable that's provided.
Hi
guys.
I'll get back to that.
Hey, Michael, welcome.
So
Yovi,
I
do you need any input or support on making progress on the validation parts? Like, are there unanswered questions in your mind that you want discussion on?
Not synchronous, at least. If people could have a read, that would be very much appreciated.
Great. Action for
And
this group then to go read through.
Yeah. And to address the point you raised, Rob, I think that we can do it purely on the name now. So we just treat them like regular fragments as it comes to preventing recursion. Because there's effectively validation. That means whenever they're spread in the same like area, they must have the same parameters anyway. So effectively they are the same thing. So just using the name, just like we do normally, is fine.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I remember us having a conversation about that many moons ago when we were rekindling this. Is can you spread the same fragment into the same place with different arguments? And we decided that would be a validation error. Yeah. Okay. That I think I still feel good about that decision. And it carves us space to do the I can't remember what we were calling it. Matt, this is your term.
Alias fragment aliases are named.
Yeah, fragment aliases. Yeah, I'm still excited about that path. That unlocks the ability then to do the right thing.
I'm trying to put this in the notes. You said that it would be a validation error to use a fragment in a different place with the same arguments. Is that right?
In the same like as you're going through the selection set and you're like you're following all the fragment paths and you're merging it, so it's going to be one final result object. If you encounter the same fragment with different values provided to their fragment arguments, then that would be a validation error, very much in the same way that if you encounter 2 fields with different values passed to their field arguments, it's a validation error. And if you needed to do that on fields, you would use field aliases. And so you can then see how the logic then gets to like, well, what if you want to do that with fragments? It's like, you should have fragment aliases, and we don't yet. So that's like an area of research.
Okay, makes sense.
But despite not advancing this to 2 just yet, Jovi, I'm very excited that you picked this up. Thank you for being the champion of this work. And congrats on the progress that you've made so far. And keep it up. I'm super excited for this to get to a mergeable state in the not too distant future.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, Benji, over to you on data collections.
Sure. So this is another one from the April working group, where it was too much work in one pull request and we've split it up again. So this was the motivation behind this originally was that we don't state the order of things very well in the spec. And so, like, could you just return the results in random order from introspection each time if it doesn't say otherwise, and so on. So we're trying to head towards being more explicit about that. So the first step, I've split the previous work into 3 pull requests. The first step in the chain is this one: define the data collections used in the spec. So it broadly defines what a list is, what a set is, and what a map is. And it also adds a very small note at the bottom there: to improve legibility when possible, implementation should preserve observable order for unordered data collections. So even though it's unordered, try and keep the order the same if you can. It just makes things better. So there's a loose like recommendation there. Yeah. There is then other pull requests if we get our way through this one, but like I'm happy if we just get one dealt with.
Okay, help guide us through like the current state of this set of 3. The first one feels like it's probably the most clear, obvious win, and then the other 2 perhaps require some input. Is that right?
Yeah. So the first one is this one, which is obvious, just defining of the types. The second one then adds additional actually, it looks like I pulled one of the preserving order things through. So actually what it does is it adds a paragraph to introspection reminding you that you should preserve the order in introspection if you can as well. And then the third one is the biggest one. That's definitely the one that's going to need the most review, I think. And that is actually going through the various types and trying to make sure that they are accurately defined. So, for example, an interface defines an ordered set of fields. It's a set because you can't have the same field more than once. It's ordered because the order is significant, just like it is with object types, and so on. Whereas at the moment, we just say it's a list of fields. So it's a lot of those kind of small changes to be more specific. And of course, a lot of white space changes.
Oh, I see. Okay, I was confused. That was the original PR, and you factored out the other pieces and left the remaining thing that needs feedback as that PR. Is that right?
Yeah, I think essentially that, yeah.
Okay. Which makes sense because that was in fact the end result thing that you were working on. Cool. I think the first one is obvious when it doesn't actually change any behavior in any way. It just describes these things. Is that right? And so that
I
means,
believe so, yeah.
yeah.
The only real change is the recommendation for legibility to maintain order. So that has slipped in there. We can delete that and only add it in the second pull request if you want. But because it's just like a vague recommendation rather than a requirement, I think it's still fine to add.
Oh, I see what you're saying. How did that get added twice?
I'm not sure. I think maybe I have a vague feeling that like it tied into I don't remember. No, I did this like 2 months ago.
Fair enough. Okay, well then for the sake of trying to get these done in a clean order, pull the preserve ordering messaging into that second PR.
Yeah.
And then that means all I need to do for this first one is do a quick editorial read,
Yeah.
which I know both of us have had editorial reads on this before, so it was mostly just like me confirming my own memory. And then I will quickly merge that one, and then we can move on to talk about how best to describe ordering and use of these things.
Okay. Yep, sounds good. That'll do for this topic, I think.
Excellent. All right. Thank you for your work on this. This is great. Which leaves us with one last thing on our agenda, which is again yours, Benji, which is fixing a reference mistake in subscription execution.
Yeah, so this isn't actually my pull request. It's a pull request someone raised back in October 2022. But it's one that I've come across a number of times. And the reason that I come across it multiple times is because I'm trying to make the formatting of the spec more consistent. And we say return an event stream that follows this, and then the steps aren't indented. So every time I read them, I'm like, should that final bit be indented or not? And then I read it and it's a bit confusing. So the issue is that we say return an event stream, response stream, which yields events as follows. And then we say when response stream completes, complete this event stream. And it's like, what are we even talking about at this point? I think it's quite simply a mistake that it should have been when the source stream completes, we should complete the response stream. And I've made this change myself manually in other places. And then only today, I think I discovered that someone else had raised this pull request 2 years ago. So I think it is literally like a typo fix, but I want to check that because maybe I'm misunderstanding it. It's a one-line change in PR 994 for anyone else who's following.
Wait, you're following PR
Right.
also does the same change? Do we only
yeah,
need to merge
so
one of these two?
I literally cherry picked it into the other one. So if you agree that the change is right, then we can discuss which of the PRs to actually merge. But yeah, first things first is looking at the line on its own. Is the change the correct change? Then we'll talk about the formatting as a second thing.
It sounds correct because you're iterating over the source stream. So if you read it from there, then if the source stream completes, then you also complete the response stream, right?
I think that's what it's essentially saying. I think that's what it means to say. Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. This block is trying to describe the map operation over a stream, right? It says for every event that comes from stream A, apply a function to the event and then yield the result of that function from stream B. And if stream A ends, then stream B ends.
Could also
Streams
be both.
are weird. What's that?
It could also be both, right? If the consumer essentially is complete and says, I'm not interested in the response stream anymore, then in essence, you complete the response stream, which triggers the complete of the event stream. You basically unsubscribe, right?
Right. Yeah. Unsubscribing, which I don't.
We do have an unsubscribe. Yeah, there is an unsubscribe. It's actually, if you just expand downwards, it's there. It's literally cancel response stream.
Yeah. Okay. In this case, it's we just need to swap.
I guess the only thing I would raise is this is like pseudocode for a for loop, right? And generally, we don't write a line at the end of the code says the for loop terminate. Like it's implied if you just for loop that. So
well, this is why streams are weird, right? Because like it is a for loop that is infinite. It does not complete. Um, and yeah. Part of what is awkward here from a like grammar point of view is everywhere else that we describe an algorithm, we are like talking about a synchronous thing, right? Like these are steps that operate in this order. You can read it top to bottom. But streams are weird in the sense that there's like different kinds of events, and each event kind of has then a thing. And so like, I don't know, maybe the like technically correct version of this would actually be something like, you know, you're creating a response stream, you're assembling event subscriptions, and then there's two separate event subscriptions, one of which is, you know, subscribe on complete and then call complete on response stream, and the other one is subscribe on event and then yield events. But QA, you're right, this is just pseudocode. So like, I don't know that it matters. Like at the end of the day, if someone can read this and understand it, we're good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think it actually might want two lines. It might want when the source stream completes, complete the response stream. And it might also want when response stream is cancelled, because that's the verb that we use in unsubscribe, then we should also cancel the event stream. Because we do actually create the event stream ourselves as well back in the subscribe algorithm. And we do need to, I guess, feed back the fact that the user's not listening to that anymore back into that original stream.
Yeah. Yeah, we say that in words, but not an algorithm in the unsubscribe section. But there's nothing actually. It actually says may, which is strange. Because presumably you would want to be like explicit that if you're canceling the response stream, then you should probably also cancel the downstream or upstream things that it's consuming.
Right. So I think that the change that we have is the change that's proposed here, I think, is correct. And the unsubscribe itself, as you say, in the body of the text rather than the algorithm, also addresses the reflection. So I think that this is probably the correct change.
I think so. Okay. I'm gonna be annoying and suggest that we split the algorithm formatting check code apart from the change itself.
Yeah, so only look at pull request 994 in that case.
Okay. Then okay, so 994 is much simpler. It doesn't do the indenting thing that your follow on PR did. Oh, I see. There's two separate things. When
I mean,
okay. I was reading the wrong PR.
Okay, I would recommend just not having that line because it's a function for map, you know?
No, but that line is important because we're describing what map is, and map is actually three things, to Michael's point, that we're missing the third one, which is because what is really happening is you're setting up event subscriptions from one. I guess that's also a mental model, but there's like three kinds of things that can happen, and you're like piping behavior between the two. One kind of thing is data, so we call that event. So if there's an event on A, it goes directly to B, but via a function, right? So it's like f of G is the thing that goes through. The other thing that can happen is it closes or completes. And if A completes, you don't want B to remain open. It could just sit there open and never ever receive another event, but we don't want that. We want it to also complete. And then Michael, your point was good, which is there's a third thing that we do not explicitly say here, which is doing the opposite direction. If the resulting stream, response stream, is canceled, then you also want to go upstream and cancel the consuming source stream. Okay, so sorry, I was confused before. This change is correct, which is the sense that it is consuming source streams completion and completing the resulting response stream. So in fact, that line was wrong, and this PR fixes the wrongness of it, and it is now right. I also think the way that we were describing this grammar is confusing because we're not being consistent in the way that we talk about like event subscriptions. Like the for each language here is very confusing. Like Quay, the thing you're describing is like an extremely reasonable way to read this because it is confusing. What we really want to say is on event, or like describing like a more of like a on subscription kind of handler as opposed to what reads like a for loop, because it's not exactly a for loop.
Yeah, we could probably reuse, like when is basically currently the like hook, right? You need a hook for when this happens. So when
Yeah.
event, when
Yeah.
close, when cancel.
Yeah, it's three events that happen essentially. You can receive a message, the subscriber is gone, or the event is completed. The event stream is completed.
Yeah. Okay. 994 is correct. I will take a pass at a revised version of this whole block that is hopefully much more clear, and probably should read more like a regular algorithm, which this doesn't yet. And then hopefully that unblocks Benji. Then you've got a nice PR, which just like does the right validation check.
So the follow-up PR is just formatting rules effectively as part of the sort of linting project to make sure things are consistent. And
Yep.
in this case, it's another one of those confusing things where there's like in Python, this would be invalid, right? There's a colon and then the code's not indented. And it's particularly unclear whether the when should or should not be indented as well, which also made, when it had the mistake in it, it made it even more hard to understand what it should have been. So if we fix the indentation, then that will also help to fix any misunderstandings in future, I think. So yeah, whilst you're making those editorial changes, if you want to go ahead and indent those blocks as well, you're more than welcome to do that. That would be great.
All right. I will do that follow-up after the meeting. I've got something in mind. And I merged 994. That's the end of our agenda. Anything else anyone has that they want to discuss? All right. Well, in that case, we ran a tight ship and have just slightly below an hour of excellent discussion. Thank you, friends. And another reminder for TSC folks to please take a look at Benji's messages on reviewing our talk submissions. Very excited for GraphQL Conf. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you all, or many of you, in a couple of months at that. Otherwise, see y'all in the next meeting over the next handful of weeks or next month.
And we have so many more talks than last year. So it's over 40 more talks.
It's wild. We got a lot of submissions. Yeah, it's great. All right, friends. Thank you, and see you in the next one.
See you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.